See, being a pirate king, it's not like the stories. No parrots on shoulders, no wooden legs or eye patches or buried treasure maps drawn in blood. Mostly, it's boats. Endless, miserable, leaky boats, and men who haven't bathed in weeks, and the constant gnawing fear that your ship will sink and you'll die alone in the middle of the ocean with nothing but seagulls to mourn you. I'm Rook, 34 years old, king of the Crimson Tide, which is a fancy way of saying I'm the most feared pirate on the Eastern Sea. Feared, not respected. There's a difference. People fear me because I'm loud and unpredictable, and I once threw a cannonball through a governor's window because he owed me money. They don't respect me because I'm a pirate, and pirates don't get respect. They get wanted posters and bad reputations and a very short life expectancy. So when I inherited a kingdom, yes, a real kingdom, with land and buildings and people who expected me to rule, I had no idea what I was doing.
The kingdom was called Ashford. Small, coastal, surrounded by larger nations who wanted to eat it for breakfast. My father had been the king before me, but he died in a shipwreck, and I was the only heir. "You can't be serious," I said to the messenger who brought the news. "Very serious, Your Majesty." "Don't call me that." "What should I call you?" "Captain, or that idiot on the boat. Either is fine." The messenger looked like he wanted to drown himself. I didn't blame him.
Here's the thing about being a pirate who suddenly becomes a king. No one trusts you. The nobles thought I was a barbarian. The common people thought I would rob them. The neighboring kingdoms thought I was a joke. I spent my first 6 months on the throne trying not to set anything on fire, and failing spectacularly. "You need an alliance," my advisor said. Her name was Mira. She had been my father's advisor, which meant she was used to dealing with stubborn men who didn't listen. I don't need anything except a bigger boat. You need a treaty with the Golden Valley. The Golden Valley? The kingdom across the river. They're rich, they're powerful, and their king is young, inexperienced, and desperate for friends. Mira smiled. "He's perfect." "What makes you think he'll agree to a treaty with a pirate?" Mira's smile widened. "Because he's a scholar. He reads books, he likes maps, he's never fought a war in his life." She paused. "And he's been asking about you for months." I blinked. "Asking about me? Why?" "You threw a cannonball through a governor's window." The governor was his cousin. "Oh," I winced. That governor owed me money." "I'm sure the king of the Golden Valley will understand." The river that separated our kingdoms was called the Serpent's Vein. Narrow, fast-moving, impossible to cross, except by boat. I brought a small ship. Not my biggest. I wasn't trying to intimidate him, but not my smallest either. I wanted him to know I was serious. The meeting place was a tiny island in the middle of the river. Neutral ground. No soldiers allowed. Just me, Mira, and whatever representatives the Golden Valley sent. I was expecting old men in fancy robes. I was not expecting the most beautiful person I had ever seen. He was young, mid-20s maybe, with dark hair pulled back from a face that looked like it had been painted by someone who hated joy. His robes were simple, but expensive. His hands were clean, soft, clearly unused to hard labor. He was also reading a book while he walked. "You're late," he said, without looking up. "I'm a pirate. We're never late. We just arrive when we feel like it." He looked up. His eyes were dark, sharp, utterly unimpressed. "You're Rook. You're the Scholar King. My name is Kale. Scholar King is catchier." Kale closed his book. He did it slowly, deliberately, like he was deciding whether to hit me with it. You threw a cannonball through my cousin's window. He owed me money. He was hosting a dinner party. There were children present. The children probably thought it was funny. Children love cannons. Cale stared at me for a long moment. Then, and I swear I'm not making this up, he almost smiled. "You're ridiculous," he said. "I've been told." "Multiple times, I'm sure." "Multiple times," I agreed. Mira cleared her throat behind me. She was giving me a look that clearly meant stop flirting and negotiate the treaty. I ignored her. "Why did you agree to meet me?" I asked. Cale tilted his head. "You're a pirate who inherited a kingdom. Everyone expects you to fail. Everyone expects me to crush you." He paused. I wanted to see for myself.
See what? Whether you're as stupid as you look. I laughed, loud and surprised and completely undignified. Cale's expression flickered. Curiosity, maybe, or confusion. "I'm not stupid," I said. "I'm just not educated. There's a difference." "Is there?" "I know boats, I know tides, I know how to read the wind and the stars, and the faces of men who are about to betray me. I don't know poetry, I don't know history, I don't know which fork to use at a fancy dinner." I shrugged. "But I'm learning." Cale was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He sat down. On the grass, in his expensive robes, cross-legged, like a child at story time. "Tell me about the stars," he said. "What?" "The stars. You said you can read them. Tell me." I looked at Mira. Mira looked at me. She shrugged. So I sat down too. That was the first meeting. We didn't sign a treaty. We didn't negotiate terms. We just sat on an island in the middle of a river, and I pointed at the sky, and Cale asked questions that made my brain hurt. "How do you navigate without landmarks?" "By the North Star. That only works in the Northern Hemisphere. Then I go south until I find it again." "That's not how navigation works." "That's how my navigation works. Don't question the system." Cale shook his head, but he was smiling now. A real smile, not the almost one from before. It made him look younger, softer, less like a king, and more like a person. "You're strange," he said. "You've mentioned. I like it." My chest did something unnecessary. I ignored it. We met again a week later. Then a week after that. Then twice a week. Then 3 times. Then every day. The island became our place. Neutral ground. No guards, no advisors, no politics. Just me and Cale, and the river and the sky. I told him about the sea. He told me about books. I taught him to skip stones. He taught me to read. Not just maps, but actual words strung together in sentences that made sense. "You're getting better," he said one afternoon. I was struggling through a passage about crop rotation. It was boring. I hated it. "I'm getting older. That's different." "You're getting smarter." "I'm getting more patient," which is the same thing. Cale laughed. It was a rare sound, warm and surprised and absolutely beautiful. I wanted to bottle it and keep it on my ship. "What?" he asked, catching me staring. "Nothing." "You were staring." "I was observing." "You were staring." "I'm a pirate. Staring is part of my brand." Cale rolled his eyes, but he was still smiling, and he didn't move away when my knee brushed against his. The problem was that I was falling for the Scholar King. Not because he was beautiful, though he was. Not because he was smart, though he was terrifyingly smart. I was falling for him because he was kind. Because he looked at me like I was worth teaching.
Because he asked questions and actually listened to the answers. "Your kingdom is starving," he said one night. We were sitting on the island, watching the sunset. "The crops failed. The trade routes are blocked. Your people are dying." "I know. And you're here, with me, instead of fixing it." I looked at him, at his sharp face and worried eyes, and the way he was twisting his fingers together, a nervous habit he thought I hadn't noticed. "I can't fix it," I tried. "The nobles won't listen. The merchants won't trade. They see a pirate on the throne and they assume I'll rob them blind." "Will you?" "No. I mean, maybe a little. But only if they're rude." Cale shook his head. "You're impossible." "You keep saying that."
"Because you keep proving it." He was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his robe and pulled out a scroll.
"What's that?" I asked.
"A treaty. An actual treaty. With trade agreements and military alliances and a shared grain reserve." He held it out to me. "I've been working on it for weeks." I stared at the scroll, then at him, then back at the scroll. "Why?" I asked. "Because your people are starving. Because my people are afraid. Because if we don't work together, the larger kingdoms will eat us both." He paused. "Because I don't want to be your enemy, Rook. I want to be your friend." "Friend? Or whatever you'd call two kings who meet on an island every night and argue about crop rotation." I laughed, loud and surprised and so full of something I didn't have a name for. "Call it an alliance," I said. "Call it a treaty. Call it whatever you want." I took the scroll. "But I'm not signing it until you teach me to read the fancy words." Cale smiled. It was the biggest smile I'd ever seen on his face. "Deal," he said. The treaty was signed a month later. It was celebrated with a feast, my first real feast as a king. There was too much food, too much wine, and far too many people asking me questions I didn't know how to answer. "You're doing fine," Cale said. He was standing beside me, watching the crowd. "I'm doing terrible." "You're doing fine," he repeated. "No one has thrown anything at you." "Give it time." Cale laughed. Then, very quietly, so no one else could hear, "Thank you." "For what?" "For trying. For not giving up. For being exactly who you are, even when everyone told you to be someone else." I looked at him, at his kind eyes and stubborn jaw, and the small smile that had become my favorite thing in the world. "I'm not trying to be anyone else," I said. "I'm trying to be someone you're not embarrassed to stand next to." Cale's breath caught. "Rook, I know, I'm impossible. You've told me. I was going to say that I'm not embarrassed." He took my hand, under the table, hidden from the crowd. "I'm proud." My heart did something stupid. I let it. My heart did something stupid. I let it. The kingdoms prospered. Not overnight. Treaties don't work like that. But slowly. The grain reserves stabilized. The trade routes reopened. The people stopped being afraid. And the nobles stopped complaining. And the larger kingdoms stopped circling like sharks. I still sailed sometimes. I couldn't help it. The sea was in my blood. No amount of throne sitting could change that. But I always came back. "You're late," Cale said. He was standing on the dock, watching my ship approach. His robes were wet. It had been raining, and he was holding an umbrella that was doing absolutely nothing. "I'm a pirate. We're never late." "You're 3 hours late." "I was hunting a storm." "Did you catch it?" I jumped off the ship and landed on the dock. My boots splashed in a puddle.
Cale stepped back to avoid the water. "No," I said, "but I saw something better." "What?" I reached into my coat and pulled out a small box, wooden, carved with waves and stars and a tiny ship on the lid. "What is that?" Cale asked. "Open it." He opened it. Inside was a ring, simple, silver, engraved with the coordinates of the island where we first met. Cale stared at it for a long time. "Rook," he said. "Don't say I'm impossible. I already know." I was going to say yes. I blinked. Yes to what? I haven't asked anything. Cale looked up at me. His eyes were bright, not with tears, but with something close. "Then ask." I took a breath. The rain was falling harder now. My crew was watching from the ship. A group of fishermen was watching from the shore. The whole kingdom was probably watching, because kingdoms have no sense of privacy. "Cale," I said, "Scholar King, annoying book lover, the only person who ever looked at me and saw something other than a pirate." I paused. "Marry me? Not for the alliance, not for the treaty, just for this. Us. The island and the stars and the stupid crop rotation arguments." Cale laughed. It was wet and surprised and absolutely perfect. "Did you just propose to me using the words stupid crop rotation arguments?" "I did." "That's the worst proposal in the history of proposals." "Is that a no?" Cale stepped forward, wrapped his arms around my neck, kissed me in the rain, in front of my crew and his fishermen and the whole damn kingdom. "That's a yes," he said when he finally pulled back. I grinned. "Good, because I already told the tailor to make you a matching coat." "You what?" "You're marrying a pirate king. We don't do things in order." Cale shook his head, but he was smiling. That real smile. The one he saved just for me. We got married on the island. Not the palace, not the cathedral. The island. Neutral ground. The place where a pirate and a scholar sat on the grass and argued about the stars. The whole kingdom came. Both kingdoms. The Crimson Tide and the Golden Valley. Standing together on the banks of the Serpent's Vein, watching two kings become one. Cale wore a simple robe. I wore my pirate coat. The ring was silver, engraved with coordinates. "I still think this is weird," Cale whispered as the priest droned on. "You think everything is weird. Because everything is weird. You're weird. I'm marrying you. That's the same thing." I laughed. The priest glared at me. I didn't care. When it was over, when the vows were said and the rings were exchanged and the whole crowd was cheering, Cale pulled me aside. "We should build a bridge," he said. "A bridge?" "Between the kingdoms, so we don't have to take a boat every time we want to see each other." I looked at him, at his sharp face and kind eyes, and the small smile that had become my whole world. "A bridge?" I said. "That's your first request as my husband?" "It's a practical request." "It's a romantic request disguised as a practical request." Cale's cheeks flushed. "Shut up. Make me." He kissed me. The crowd cheered. Somewhere on the river, a fish jumped. We built the bridge. It took 3 years. It cost too much money. Half the nobles complained that it would ruin the river trade. The other half complained that it was ugly. But when it was finished, when the first person walked from one kingdom to the other without setting foot on a boat, Cale held my hand and said, "We did that." "We did," I agreed. Together. Together. We stood on the bridge, watching the sun set over the water. The same water that had separated us. The same water that had brought us together. Tell me something true, Kale said. You're still impossible. I know. You're still mine. He leaned his head against my shoulder. The wind was warm. The sky was gold. I know that too, he said. And below us, the serpent's vein flowed on. The same river, the same water, the same stubborn current that had carried a pirate king to a scholar king on a tiny island in the middle of nowhere. That's not a story you find in books, but it's the one I'm living. And honestly, it's better than any treasure I ever stole.